The wind cut through the icy plains like a sharp blade, whipping against the thin cloak of the mother as she crouched over her tiny child, her arms wrapped tightly around the fragile warmth of her little one. The snow swirled around them, painting the world in endless white. Hiding any sign of life or hope, her lips were blue, and her teeth chattered with each breath. But she held her child closer, feeling the faint heartbeat that still thumped beneath the small chest. It was the only sound that told her life had not yet left them. Yet the cold whispered promises of darkness and finality. Her eyes flicked to the horizon, where shadows danced and faded among the ice hills. She could not see clearly, but her motherly instinct told her something moved there. Something watching, something waiting, but she had no strength to turn and face it. The child stirred weakly, letting out a small whimper that cut through the silent night, and her heart ached with the thought of leaving them alone in this frozen wasteland. She drew the tiny body even closer, wrapping the tattered cloak around them both, trying to trap the little warmth inside. "I can't protect you forever," she whispered to the child, her voice trembling, yet strong enough to hide the fear that gripped her. "If I close my eyes now, maybe it will be easier." Her mind wandered through memories of a world that once had sun, laughter, and safety, but those were gone, replaced by endless ice and loneliness. The howling wind seemed to mock her, reminding her of every failure, every step that had led them here, every choice that had been made to survive, and every moment that brought them closer to the edge of despair. The snow beneath her shifted slightly and she froze, staring at the faint impression of footprints approaching through the frozen ground. They were not human, she thought at first, yet they moved with purpose, careful and deliberate, not random like the tracks of the wild creatures that roamed these plains. Her breath caught in her throat, and she tightened her hold around her child. "Stay still, little one," she murmured, hoping the sound of her voice would comfort them both. As the shadows drew closer, she could make out the form of a figure, tall and broad, moving steadily through the blizzard. Its movements were deliberate yet calm, almost as if it belonged here, untouched by the frozen chaos that threatened everything else. The figure paused for a moment, scanning the icy expanse, and then, as if sensing her presence, it turned toward them. The mother's heart skipped a beat. Hope and fear tangled inside her like icy vines. Should she cry out for help, or remain hidden and risk nothing? She decided to stay still, pressing herself against the frozen ground, her child buried in her arms. She could feel the warmth fading from her fingertips, her toes numb and stiff, yet she refused to let go, refusing to surrender even to the cold. The figure came closer, and she could finally see a faint light emanating from it, a glow that was not from fire or technology she recognized, but something different, something alive, something warm. The warmth reached her even from a distance, seeping through the layers of ice and snow, and she wondered if this could be the miracle she had silently prayed for. A hand extended through the blizzard, covered in thick gloves, but radiating heat that made the ice on her cloak melt slightly. The mother lifted her eyes, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she felt a pulse of hope. The figure knelt down beside her, careful not to startle the child, and spoke in a voice that was calm, steady and kind, yet strange. "You are not alone," it said, the words cutting through the howl of the wind, wrapping around her like a protective blanket. Her mind raced, disbelief and relief battling inside her. Could it be real? Could someone truly care enough to find them here? In the frozen edge of the world, her child stirred, sensing the change, and she whispered, "It's okay, it's okay," trying to believe it herself. The figure moved closer and the warmth grew stronger, enveloping them both in a bubble of life amidst the deathly cold. The mother allowed herself a single breath of hope, fragile as glass, but more precious than any treasure she had known. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the small cocoon of warmth, time seemed to slow. She watched as the figure worked silently, adjusting the cloak, shielding them from the worst of the cold, every movement careful and deliberate, full of purpose. She did not know who this stranger was or why they had come, but a quiet trust began to form in her heart, a feeling she had not dared to feel in months. The thought that they might survive this night, that they might live to see another dawn, became a fragile ember burning in the ice. And as the mother pressed her face against her child's soft hair, listening to the faint heartbeat, she realized something she had almost forgotten, something powerful, something human, something that could survive even the harshest cold. Hope. The stranger knelt beside the mother and child, his presence calm yet commanding. His eyes, faintly glowing in the cold light, studied them carefully, measuring their strength. their fear and their need. The mother's hands trembled as she clutched her child tighter. Unsure if this figure was friend or foe, her mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Yet the warmth radiating from him was undeniable, pushing against the icy numbness that had settled into her body. He reached out slowly, one gloved hand hovering above the child, and the mother flinched, expecting the worst. But the touch was gentle, almost tender, a warmth spreading like sunlight through frozen earth. The child stirred, sensing the stranger's care, and let out a soft whimper that turned into a small sigh, as if recognizing safety for the first time in a long time. The mother's eyes filled with tears. Part relief, part disbelief, she whispered. Who are you?" The stranger gave no immediate answer, only a quiet gesture for her to stay calm. He produced a small device from his belt, glowing softly with a blue light, and held it close to the child, scanning, measuring, and adjusting. The mother watched, mesmerized, as frost melted around them, and warmth began to seep into their bones. She could feel the cold retreating, like an enemy being driven back, and the child's breathing evened, the tiny chest rising and falling more strongly than before. I don't understand," she murmured, her voice shaky. "What is this? How are you helping us?" The stranger finally spoke, his voice calm and low, carrying a weight of experience and care. "This place is harsh, colder than anything you have survived before. You have fought well to stay alive, but alone you would not last the night. I do not seek reward, only to help those in need." His words were simple, yet they carried an authority that made the mother believe him, a truth she could not ignore. She studied him closely, noticing the faint scars on his hands, the unusual structure of his body, stronger and more agile than an ordinary human, and the faint shimmer that surrounded him like a protective aura. Something about him was otherworldly, yet entirely trustworthy. He was human enough to understand fear, yet powerful enough to conquer the cold, and the mother's mind struggled to reconcile these truths. The stranger worked methodically, adjusting the cloak around the child, pressing a small, glowing patch to the tiny back, and murmuring words she did not understand. Yet the warmth spread, comforting them both, and the mother felt herself slowly relaxing, a weight lifting from her shoulders that she had carried for too long. She dared a glance at the stranger's face, trying to read his expression, and saw only focus, compassion, and a quiet determination. "You saved us," she said finally, almost in disbelief. "Why? Why me? Why my child?" He paused, looking out at the endless ice, as if measuring the emptiness of the world against their small lives. "Because someone must care, and because life here is precious. Even if few understand it," he moved closer, creating a shield of warmth with his body, the cold retreating further, melting snow into harmless droplets around them. The mother's heart ached with gratitude, a feeling she had almost forgotten in this frozen wasteland. For a long moment neither spoke, only the wind and the soft breathing of the child filled the silence. The stranger's presence was a quiet promise, a silent protection that needed no words. Yet the mother could sense the burden he carried, a life of watching, helping, and moving through harsh worlds, always alone, always reaching for those who could not help themselves. She wondered what stories he had lived, what battles he had fought, what losses he had endured. Finally, he stood, gently helping the mother to her feet, her body stiff and numb from the cold. "We must move," he said simply, his voice carrying the certainty of experience. "There is more danger than just the cold here, and you cannot survive by staying in one place." The mother nodded, trusting him, though fear still lingered in the edges of her mind. As they began walking through the snow, the stranger leading, she kept her child close, feeling the warmth radiating from both of them. It was more than heat. It was hope, a fragile yet powerful shield against despair. Every step felt surreal, walking alongside someone who had appeared like a guardian angel in the frozen night. She dared to imagine a world beyond ice and darkness, a place where survival was possible and perhaps even joy. The stranger glanced back, seeing her thoughts, and offered a small, reassuring nod, as if silently promising that they would endure this together. The wind howled and snow swirled, yet inside this small bubble of warmth, fear and cold could not reach them, not completely at least, and the mother held her child tighter, feeling a new resolve settle in her chest. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she dared to hope that they might live, that they might see the dawn of a new day. And as the stranger moved steadily forward, leading them through the endless white, She realized that this night, so full of terror and uncertainty, was only the beginning of their journey. A journey that would test courage, trust, and humanity in ways she had never imagined. Yet for now, in the stranger's touch and warmth, she allowed herself to believe in survival, in safety and something beyond the cold. The mother followed closely behind the stranger, her tiny child wrapped tightly against her chest, every step through the frozen wasteland leaving a trail in the snow. The wind still bit at their faces, but the warmth surrounding them seemed almost alive. Pushing back the cold, the child's small fingers clutched her cloak, and she whispered softly, "It's okay. It's okay," as if telling herself as much as the child. She stole glances at the stranger, curiosity growing with every step. There was something about him she could not place, something familiar yet not of this world. His movements were smooth and precise, like a creature born of both instinct and careful training. His eyes, calm and steady, occasionally flickered with faint colors that danced like the northern lights, and she wondered if they were human at all. "Who are you?" she asked finally, her voice barely above the howl of the wind. The stranger did not answer immediately, only kept walking as if testing her patience. She bit her lip, unsure if she had asked too much, then pressed on. "Why are you helping us? Why not leave us to die?" He slowed slightly, glancing back at her, and his expression softened. "I have seen many like you," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "People who are small, fragile, and alone, yet holding on to life with every ounce of strength they have. They deserve a chance, even when the world offers none." The mother swallowed hard, feeling a lump in her throat. Every word carried weight, honesty, and care. She realized he had likely walked through frozen wastelands and danger before. Saving others, always moving forward, always giving. She wanted to ask more, about his past, his world, but fear held her tongue. Instead, she studied the faint scars on his hands and the way his eyes seemed to see through the blizzard. Noticing every detail, measuring every shadow, her heart ached with a strange mix of gratitude and wonder. How could someone so powerful, so otherworldly, care so deeply for two strangers? The stranger paused suddenly, raising a gloved hand toward a ridge ahead. "We must rest there," he said, pointing to a small cave partially hidden by ice formations. They hurried toward it, the mother clutching her child tighter as the wind threatened to push them back. Inside the cave, the temperature was slightly better, the walls shielding them from the worst of the storm. The stranger knelt and gestured for her to sit, holding out a small, glowing device that emitted gentle warmth. She placed the child on her lap, feeling the life returning to the tiny body, and a sense of relief washed over her. "Your strength is remarkable," the stranger said, more to himself than to her. As he adjusted the glow of the device, few could survive this long with so little warmth, so little hope. His eyes flicked to her, then back to the child, and she realized he was observing them not just for survival, but with care, almost as if he was making sure their spirits remained intact. Curiosity overwhelmed her, and she asked, "Where do you come from? Why do you move through these lands alone?" He hesitated, his gaze distant for a moment, as if remembering 1,000 lives, 1,000 places. "I come from far away," he said finally, "a world that is not yours. Yet my purpose has always been to help those who cannot help themselves. I have walked through deserts, storms, and frozen plains to reach those who are lost, hoping my presence can give them a second chance." The words were simple, yet they carried a weight that made her shiver in more ways than one. She realized he was not merely a man, but a guardian of sorts, someone who existed to protect, to care, to inspire hope in the hopeless, and yet he did not boast. He did not demand thanks, he moved silently, letting actions speak louder than words. The mother felt a mix of awe and humility, wondering if she would ever be able to repay such kindness. For a brief moment, silence filled the cave, only the faint hum of the device and the child's breathing breaking it. The mother's mind wandered, imagining the worlds he had seen, the dangers he had faced, and the lives he had saved. Each possibility made her heart race. Each thought filled her with gratitude, yet also a strange sadness for the solitude he must endure. "Will we be safe?" she asked finally, her voice small, almost afraid to hear the answer. The stranger's gaze softened, and he knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "As long as I am with you," he said simply, "no harm will come near you. You are not alone now." The mother felt the weight of fear lift slightly, replaced by the warmth of trust, and for the first time since the storm began, she allowed herself to breathe fully. The cave felt less cold, less lonely, as if the stranger's presence had created a small island of life in a frozen sea. She pressed her child closer, watching him, trying to memorize every detail, knowing that this figure, this guardian, was extraordinary, someone sent by fate or something greater, to guide them through the night. And as the snowstorm continued to rage outside, she realized that their journey was just beginning, and that the stranger's secrets were only part of the story they would share together. The snowstorm had not relented, swirling violently outside the small cave as the mother clutched her child tighter, her eyes darting toward the faint shadows dancing on the icy walls. She had started to trust the stranger. Yet the icy winds whispered warnings she could not ignore. Something in the air felt wrong, as if unseen eyes watched their every move. And the cave, though sheltering, offered only temporary protection. The stranger remained calm, kneeling beside them, adjusting the warmth of his device so the child's cheeks flushed slightly with life. He glanced toward the cave entrance, his expression shifting from calm to alert, subtle yet unmistakable. The mother noticed immediately, sensing a shift in his focus. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Stay close," he replied quietly, his eyes scanning the entrance. "Something approaches, and it is not the storm." A low hum seemed to vibrate through the cave floor, faint at first, then growing steadily louder. The mother's heart skipped, fear tightening its grip around her. She pressed her child closer, whispering soothing words she barely believed herself. From the blizzard outside, shapes began to emerge, strange silhouettes moving with purpose, too large and coordinated to be wild animals. Their forms blurred by snow, yet she could sense claws, limbs, and something mechanical glinting in the icy light. The stranger rose slowly, his figure tall and protective, placing himself between them and the approaching danger. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, and filled with quiet authority. "They are not natural," he said, almost to himself. "They seek warmth, and they sense life." The mother's eyes widened, terror creeping through her chest. "They will—" "What, kill us?" she asked, barely able to speak. He did not answer immediately, only reached for a small device at his belt, pressing buttons that caused a faint shield of energy to shimmer around them. The strange shapes outside paused, hissing in unison, as if disturbed by this invisible barrier, yet they did not retreat. Their movements were patient, calculating, circling the cave like predators waiting for the right moment. The mother's mind raced, trying to understand the threat, yet every explanation fell short. She had never seen such creatures before, their forms alien, dangerous and intelligent. She looked at the stranger, hoping for reassurance, and found none was needed, for his stance, his focus, and his calm breath told her he had faced far worse and survived. "Why are they here?" she asked quietly, almost afraid to break the tension. "Why us?" "They follow life," he replied simply. "Every warmth, every heartbeat, every sign of survival calls to them. They do not know mercy, and they do not stop until the target is gone." He moved to the cave entrance, extending a hand that emitted a pulse of energy, pushing back some of the snow and keeping the creatures at bay. The mother clutched her child, watching the struggle of light against darkness, hope against instinct. Suddenly, one of the shapes lunged forward, faster than her eyes could track, and the stranger moved in a blur, intercepting it mid-step with strength and precision that seemed almost unnatural. He threw it back into the snow, the creature hissing angrily before it scrambled to regain footing. The others circled tighter, their movements synchronized, calculating, testing the barrier, and she realized that the night was far from safe. "Hold on to me," the stranger said to the mother, placing a protective arm around both her and the child. The energy shield flickered with each assault, dimly glowing, and the mother felt her chest tighten with both fear and awe. She had never imagined a force could be so alive, so responsive, and yet so protective. The wind and snow seemed to merge with the creatures, forming an almost living storm that threatened to overtake the cave. The stranger's eyes flicked to them repeatedly, calculating, adjusting, his every move precise, and she saw a mixture of human care and alien instinct in his gestures. Every heartbeat of the child seemed amplified in the icy silence between attacks. Every breath a small victory, minutes stretched like hours. Yet neither mother nor child faltered, their trust in the stranger growing with each threat repelled. Each movement that saved them from claws, teeth, and sharp limbs, she dared to peek at his face, seeing focus, determination, and an unspoken promise that no harm would come. Her heart swelled with gratitude, yet fear still lingered like ice on her skin. Finally, With a flash of light and a low hum that shook the snow around the cave, the creatures recoiled, retreating into the blizzard, their hiss fading as the barrier held strong. The stranger lowered his hands, the energy shield dissipating slowly, and turned to her. "It is not over," he said quietly. "They will return, yet now you understand why we must keep moving." The mother nodded, feeling both relief and renewed fear. Her child stirred, sensing the end of danger, and she kissed the tiny forehead. Feeling warmth return, the night was far from safe. Yet in this small cave, with this mysterious protector, they had survived if only for a moment. And as the snowstorm continued outside, relentless and cruel, she realized that the journey ahead would test not only their bodies, but their courage, trust, and hope. Yet with the stranger's presence, she felt a spark inside, fragile but unbroken, a flame that would not be snuffed out by cold, by fear, or by the hidden threats of this alien world. The snowstorm had lessened slightly, leaving a pale glow across the frozen landscape as the mother followed the stranger through the icy plains. Her child still wrapped tightly in her arms, tiny fingers clutching at her cloak. She felt the warmth radiating from the stranger, a shield against the cold that allowed them to take cautious steps forward. Yet every sound of the wind or shifting snow reminded her that danger still lingered. Invisible but very real, the stranger moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the horizon constantly, noticing patterns in the snow, the faintest tracks left by creatures, and the slightest changes in the storm. Every step seemed deliberate, as if he knew this land better than anyone could. The mother's heart raced, both from exhaustion and awe. She had never seen someone so attuned to the world around them, so alive and so vigilant. Ahead, strange formations of ice and rock loomed, jagged peaks rising from the plains like frozen teeth. The stranger guided them carefully between these natural barriers, knowing each twist and slope could hide predators or sudden drops. The mother's legs ached, but she dared not falter, gripping her child and trusting him completely. Each step forward felt like a small victory, each breath of warmer air a sign of hope. "Why are you helping us?" she asked quietly, her voice almost lost in the wind. "You don't even know us," he glanced back briefly, his eyes calm yet intense. "Because someone must," he said simply. "In this world, kindness is rare, but it matters more than strength. I have survived storms, ice, and hunger, yet nothing compares to seeing life in danger and doing nothing. You and your child deserve to live, and I will make sure you do." His words, simple and steady, filled her with warmth she had not felt for months, a sense that survival was not just possible but likely. The plains stretched endlessly before them, snow sparkling like shards of glass under a pale light, yet the landscape was deceptive, hiding pitfalls and crevices beneath its frozen surface. The stranger moved ahead, testing the ground, leading them carefully, every step a mixture of precision and intuition. The mother marveled silently, imagining the countless times he must have navigated hostile worlds, saving others with the same quiet care. As they walked, the child stirred, small eyelids opening to blink at the stranger's presence. The mother smiled faintly, whispering softly, "See, someone is here to protect us." The child's tiny hand reached toward the stranger, who knelt slightly to offer reassurance, his gloved fingers hovering near the little palm, radiating warmth and security. The mother's heart ached with gratitude and a strange hope she had not dared to feel before. Suddenly the wind shifted, colder and sharper, carrying with it distant sounds of movement, perhaps creatures still hunting, perhaps the remnants of the storm. The stranger paused, crouching and motioning for them to stay close. His eyes scanned every angle, every shadow, before nodding and moving forward again, slower, deliberate, protective. The mother followed without question, trusting his instincts more than her own. They came to a narrow passage between two frozen cliffs, the wind howling through the gap like a living creature. The stranger led them carefully, shielding them from the worst of the gusts with his body. The mother felt a strange sense of awe, realizing he could have chosen to leave them in the storm. Yet he had stayed, guiding them, guarding them, giving them a chance. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed to blur in the endless white. Yet slowly, the landscape changed, the ice thinning and giving way to patches of frozen ground dotted with strange alien vegetation, soft glowing plants that gave off a faint light and warmth. A sense of safety began to seep into the mother's heart, a fragile relief she had almost forgotten. The stranger motioned for them to rest, guiding them to a small hollow where the alien plants offered some protection from the wind. He adjusted the child in her arms, placing a gentle hand to ensure warmth remained, and then moved slightly to create a protective barrier with his body. The mother watched, silent, overwhelmed by gratitude and wonder. She wanted to ask about his past, about his world, about why he had chosen this life of endless vigilance. Yet words felt small compared to the presence of someone who had saved them from the cold, the storm, and the creatures that lurked unseen. "Rest for a moment," he said quietly, his voice calm and steady. "We still have a long way to go. But the danger is less immediate here." The mother nodded, easing herself and the child down, feeling the alien warmth seep into their frozen bodies. Her mind wandered briefly to the life she had lost, the home, the familiar places. Yet she realized that survival was more important, and that this stranger had given them a chance, a path forward through the frozen wasteland. As they rested, she allowed herself to look at him closely, noticing the faint scars along his hands and arms, the quiet intensity in his eyes, and the small ways he moved to ensure both her and the child were safe. She realized that this man, this stranger, was unlike anyone she had ever met, part human, part something more, a guardian in a harsh world, and that his compassion was as powerful as any weapon. The snowstorm continued outside, relentless and cold. Yet in this small hollow of alien light, warmth, and protection, the mother felt hope flicker again, fragile, delicate, yet strong enough to keep them moving. She pressed her child closer, feeling the heartbeat steady under her hand, and whispered softly, "We will survive. We will see the sun again." The stranger, kneeling nearby, seemed to sense her thoughts and gave a small nod, an unspoken promise that they would endure the night together. And as the alien plants glowed faintly around them, the mother realized that this journey was only beginning, that each step forward would test courage, trust, and hope. Yet with the stranger guiding them, she dared to believe that survival was possible, and that perhaps even in this cold alien world, life could bloom again. The alien landscape stretched endlessly before them, snow and ice giving way to jagged rocks and strange glowing vegetation. The mother tightened her grip on her child, feeling both fear and trust in the stranger leading them through this harsh world. Each step forward was careful, measured, for danger could strike from any shadow, any crevice. The wind carried whispers of the storm behind them, yet the stranger's calm presence seemed to create a shield, both physical and emotional, around them. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, sending loose stones tumbling down the slope. The mother froze, her heart racing as the tremors grew stronger. The stranger's eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon with keen focus, his body tense yet controlled. "Stay close," he warned, moving swiftly to place himself between the mother, child, and whatever threat lurked ahead. She obeyed instantly, pressing the child tighter against her chest. Trusting him completely, then they appeared, a pack of enormous creatures with bodies glinting like ice and claws that could tear through flesh and metal alike. Their glowing eyes pierced the dim light, scanning for warmth and movement. The mother's breath caught in her throat, and the child whimpered softly. Sensing the danger, the stranger stepped forward, raising his hand slightly, and a soft hum of energy spread around them, forming a protective barrier that shimmered in the alien light. The creatures hesitated, hissing in unison, testing the strength of the barrier. Their movements were intelligent, coordinated. Like hunters who had stalked many prey before, the mother's mind raced, fear mingling with awe as she watched the stranger. Standing calm and resolute, his every movement precise, almost otherworldly, he studied the creatures, reading their intent, anticipating their strikes, and the mother realized that he had faced worse dangers before, surviving by skill, instinct, and courage. One of the creatures lunged suddenly, faster than her eyes could follow, and the stranger reacted instantly, intercepting it with a force that sent it crashing into the rocks. The others circled, more cautious now. But still hungry, still relentless, the stranger shifted, moving with a fluidity that made her heart ache with both fear and admiration. He extended his hands, releasing a pulse of energy that forced the creatures back, the snow swirling violently around them. "Hold the child close," he instructed, his voice calm but firm. "Do not move unless I tell you. Trust me." The mother obeyed, her arms tightening instinctively, feeling the warmth radiating from both the child and the stranger. She realized that this was more than survival. This was a lesson in courage, in trust, and in hope. The creatures tested the barrier again and again, yet the stranger's control never faltered, every pulse, every movement calculated to protect them. Hours seemed to pass as the battle of wills continued, snow and energy colliding in a storm of light and ice. The mother's muscles ached from holding the child, yet she could not look away. Mesmerized by the stranger's skill and determination, she wondered at his past, imagining the countless lives he had saved, the dangers he had faced, and the loneliness he must endure to walk this path of constant protection. Finally, with a flash of brilliant energy, the creatures recoiled, retreating into the shadows from which they came, their hissing fading as the barrier held firm. The stranger lowered his hands, the energy dissipating slowly, and turned to the mother and child, his face calm yet tired. "It is done. For now," he said quietly. "The immediate danger has passed, but there will be more challenges ahead. You must stay strong." The mother nodded, her chest heaving with relief and exhaustion, her child resting peacefully in her arms. The weight of fear lifted slightly, replaced by gratitude and awe. She had witnessed courage, strength, and selflessness in its purest form, and she could feel a spark of hope igniting in her chest, a flame that refused to be snuffed out by cold or danger. The stranger knelt beside her, adjusting the child in her arms, ensuring warmth and safety. "You have survived well," he said softly, almost as if praising the mother for her courage. "It is not just my strength that protects you, but your will to endure, your care, your love, and your courage make the difference." The mother felt tears well up, her heart swelling with emotion at the truth of his words. She had survived not alone, but through the bond of trust and shared determination. For a long moment they rested in silence, the snowstorm outside continuing but less threatening, the creatures gone for now. The mother pressed her child close, feeling the tiny heartbeat steady under her hand, and whispered softly, "We will survive together." The stranger nodded slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of their shared endurance and the trials they had overcome. He had tested them, protected them, and now their journey would continue, stronger and wiser for the trials of the night. And as the wind howled beyond the rocky cliffs, the mother realized that the ultimate test had not only been of survival, but of trust, courage, and the quiet, powerful force of humanity that could shine even in the coldest, most alien places with the stranger beside them. She believed that they could face whatever came next, knowing that hope, warmth, and courage would guide them through the darkness. The storm had finally begun to ease, the snow settling into soft drifts that sparkled faintly under the pale light of distant stars. The mother held her child close, feeling the steady warmth of life returning to both of them. The stranger walked ahead, guiding them toward a gentle rise in the frozen landscape, where the light from alien plants shimmered like a quiet promise. Every step seemed lighter than the last, though their journey had tested every ounce of courage they possessed. She glanced at the stranger, noticing the faint scars on his hands and the quiet determination in his eyes. He moved with purpose, yet without hurry, careful to shield them from even the smallest dangers. She felt a deep sense of trust, a bond that had formed in the harshest of nights, a bond forged in ice, fear, and survival. The child stirred slightly in her arms, small eyes blinking at the faint light, and she whispered softly, "We are safe." For now, hoping it was true. Ahead, the terrain changed, the jagged rocks giving way to smoother ice and patches of glowing vegetation. The alien light cast a warm golden hue across the landscape, making it appear less hostile and more like a place of life and hope. The mother breathed deeply, inhaling the faint scent of alien flora and the crisp, clean air that seemed almost magical after the bitter winds. She felt her strength returning, the cold and fear of the past night slowly melting from her body. The stranger stopped near a small hollow where the alien plants created a natural shelter. Their light pooled softly on the snow, illuminating the mother and child in a gentle glow. He gestured for her to rest, kneeling beside them as she eased the child onto the soft ground. Adjusting the cloak to trap warmth, the mother watched him silently, heart full of gratitude and awe, realizing that he had carried them through storms, attacks, and the merciless cold, without hesitation, without expectation of reward. "Why do you help us?" she asked quietly, her voice almost lost in the soft hum of the glowing plants. "Why care for strangers like us?" The stranger looked at her, a faint smile touching his lips. "Because life matters," he said simply, "even the smallest life. The weakest heartbeat is worth saving. I have seen worlds lost to neglect. I have seen hope die when no one acted. Yet here, you and your child live, and that matters more than anything else." His words were simple, yet they carried the weight of experience and the warmth of compassion. The mother nodded slowly, feeling tears prick her eyes. She realized that kindness, courage, and care could exist even in the harshest places. Even in worlds filled with danger, She pressed her child closer, feeling the tiny heartbeat strong and steady against her chest, and whispered softly, "We are alive. Because of you." The stranger merely nodded, focusing on creating a safe perimeter, his eyes scanning the horizon even in this moment of calm. The alien light shifted as dawn approached, a faint glow on the horizon signaling the beginning of a new day. The mother felt a sense of peace she had not known in months, a fragile yet powerful warmth spreading through her chest. She looked at the child's small face smiling in sleep, and felt hope bloom inside her like the first flowers of spring. For the first time since the frozen wasteland had claimed their home, she believed that life could continue, that joy could return. The stranger stood, watching the horizon, a silent guardian in the golden light. The mother realized that he would not stay long, that his path was one of endless journeys, helping those in need, moving on once others were safe. Yet the impact he had left would stay with them forever, a lesson in courage and trust. And in the quiet strength of humanity, she pressed her child close, feeling the warmth of life and hope mingling together, a force stronger than fear, stronger than any storm. As the light grew brighter, the mother took a deep breath, feeling a sense of renewal. The frozen world around them seemed less harsh, less hostile, and more like a place where survival was possible. She stood slowly, cradling her child, and looked back at the stranger, who gave a small nod, acknowledging their endurance, their courage, and the hope that would guide them forward. The mother whispered a quiet thank you, her voice carrying gratitude, relief, and love. Together, they began to walk, the child nestled safely, the stranger leading the way through the softly glowing landscape. The past nights of fear and struggle had not broken them, but had made them stronger. And in that strength they found warmth, hope, and the courage to continue. Each step forward felt like a promise of life renewed, a testament to the power of care, compassion, and the human spirit. And as the first rays of an alien sun broke through the distant horizon, bathing the ice and plants in soft golden light, the mother realized that survival was only the beginning, that warmth, hope, and courage could create a new dawn even in the coldest worlds. And in that moment she knew that they were not just alive. They were ready to embrace life, to move forward, and to carry the light of hope into whatever came next.